Hi, since you're filling in for Sir Wiki, I thought I would ask you a question I was going to ask him. Of course, if you just think he's wrong on this, you don't have to defend him. Here's my question. In the section on democracy, Sir Wiki just makes the remark that there's no real reason to think that people would be good in every other area, but then suddenly lose their heads in a democratic forum. But then there's this very awkward fact that prediction markets are extremely unpopular for political issues, most notably for the terrorism betting markets case, which my colleague Robin Hanson was closely involved in. So this is a case where when the public found out that there was a proposed plan to bet on terrorism, within one day the program was canceled. All right, so this was an example to throw in the face of everyone who thinks this is a tyranny of the status quo. The political system responded incredibly rapidly to the revelation that a terrorism betting market was being planned by the government. And again, it's no real surprise why, because some of those polls show something like 90% of Americans thought this was about the worst idea that they had ever heard. So here's the real puzzle. If we go and think that the wisdom of crowds applies to democracy, we then see that democracy says we shouldn't be using prediction markets, and that it's wrong and even evil and also useless and dangerous. So I'm curious as to what you might say about that. Or what James might say about it if he were here. Either way.
I first answer, then I'll pass them to Emile. I can't answer for James, of course. I can answer for myself. If you think of what Schumpeter said about disruptive innovation, it has to face strong opposition by the masses. So it could be said that people, especially if there were people who were morally opposed to it and said it out loud in the Senate, people would be influenced by this and they would go against something that's new. But I don't think the moral opposition is very much relevant in that case. I'm only speaking for myself. I think, but on the other hand, from a personal point of view, I'm not sure I would be using the decision market for such things. But
the program that you're alluding to was cancelled, I think, within one day of it being revealed by some couple senators who wanted to get some publicity. So basically it was cancelled before anybody heard about it. Okay. What happened was very interesting. It was great for the industry, of course, because then in the U.S., not here, but in the U.S., everybody talked about this for a week. So you had a week of pundits, opinion writers in all the papers saying this is a really stupid thing. And then you had a couple weeks of everybody else in the academic world coming out and saying, no, wait a minute, this is a fantastic idea. So for the industry, it was a fantastic thing. But I would disagree with your premise that the public opinion was against this from the start, because the public opinion really had no idea what this thing was. They had never heard about it until two senators went on the steps of the Capitol Hill and said, this is a horrible thing, it's gambling on death, let's cancel it within the next couple hours, basically. And so they called up the head of the program, Poindexter, fired him publicly, basically on the same day. So public opinion really didn't hear about this at all. So it was just a couple politicians seeking publicity by canceling this.
Yes, Brian Kaplan from George Mason University. Just a quick follow-up. I'm quite confident that public opinion polls were done, but also the reason why the senators were able to get so much attention is precisely because they knew that this is something that Americans would find was terrible. And again, there was quite a bit of work done afterwards showing that Americans thought this was a bad idea. And I would actually like to stick my neck out and say I am willing to bet and even give some odds that betting markets will not be adopted in the United States on a controversial issue of this kind in the next 20 years. Right? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, actually, it's related to what you just said. I think that the terrorism future market is not only about moral issue and image. It's important. Of course, some people were shocked by the fact that you would place a bet on death. But it's not only that. I mean, in security circles, there was some concern about who would enter the market. Because actually, it's totally plausible that you would have had terrorist groups who would have entered the market and placed a false bet in order to divert the attention of the government. And therefore, you see that this market is not a priori functional. And actually, it raises a sort of a bigger question about the wisdom of crowds. It's about the limits of the crowds. As far as you do not close the border of the group, as far as you go global, such as in this case, well, I think you're pretty much in trouble, because you would find strategies, intentions, and the result will be affected. And you will get exactly the contrary of what you expect.
I don't think so. Personally, I don't think it's because it's international, it's going to be biased. But you're the specialist, so... But I don't see why it would be more biased, because it's international audience.
Well, you raised two questions. One was the design of this particular market, which was, I agree, flawed. I would disagree, though, with your premise that terrorists would have gone to play on this market if only because it was operated by the DoD. I mean, what kind of terrorist would put his credit card to play on something that's operated by the DoD? So that was a bit weird. At the same time, you raised the other issue, which is manipulation. Can these things be manipulated to make people think something stupid? And you can see here an example of manipulation where the stock of Obama goes to 0 in July 2007. Okay, what happens there? And your colleague at George Mason, Robin Hanson, which is a genius, and I have a profound admiration for him. He changed my life. It's because of him that I started doing this. Robin Hanson showed in the lab, and we see that regularly in real prediction markets, that whenever somebody tries to manipulate the stock by moving it to a price that is apparently stupid to most people, that just makes the market even more efficient, because it creates incentives for people who do have the right information to get in and bet against somebody who's behaving stupidly. Okay? And in fact, you don't have a market unless you have people behaving stupidly to some extent. I mean, you have to have a way to make money from people who know less than you. So when somebody tries to manipulate the thing, it just makes the market even more efficient. And all kinds of manipulations are just immediately corrected, as you can see here. They get immediately corrected with lots of people making lots of money because somebody behaves stupidly.